Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Endless Celts Podcast. And what we thought would have been a slow news day, maybe a slow news week, is anything but. We've got plenty to talk about. But first of all, I want to do what I've done with Willie on Friday. Obviously, there's a big push at the minute on mental health and charities, organisations, and stuff. So, Franny, how's your last week been, and what did you do over the weekend? Do you up to much?
Last week was actually okay, Stephen, out and about. We worked down south again with work, and then over the weekend I actually had myself a nice wee relaxing massage on Saturday.
Oh, did he? Did he?
Yes, not one with a happy ending, but it's just your normal massage. And then yesterday just spent with the kids away. We've been the nice weather. We went over to Lanark, and they've got like dinosaurs scattered about all over Lanark. So it was good. It was good,
I
Steve.
seen
Just
the
out in the fresh air. Out in the fresh air is good for your mental health.
There's even more than Lark Call, mate.
I seen the photos on Instagram of the wee dinosaur trail. It looked fantastic when you were out at it. And like you said, apparently being out and about, like myself, I've been busting out steps like over 30,000 in the last couple of days, going to the gym, trying to get fit, trying to get the head
I
clear.
don't believe you didn't put it on Instagram.
I mean, I don't put things on Instagram. What's the point? You grow in silence and you become the boss. No, I'm only joking.
Got it.
But what about yourself, Anthony? How you feeling? You feeling fit? You feeling fresh?
Absolutely, mate. I had a good wee weekend. I was in working this weekend, so I had the Monday off for it today, so it was good. Finished up yesterday, sat out the back as I normally do, as annoying you guys in the group chat with a few beers, and then watched a wee bit of the Transmit Festival as well. These are the things you do when there's no football on, but it was all good.
When you're out the back, Anthony, strange things happens in the group chat. Like it's good crack. And to be fair, Franny, I actually like the fact that you had to clarify that there was no happy ending in Massage, but I hope you enjoyed it, to say the least. But we'll crack on and we'll talk Celtic, and we'll get stuck right into about in terms of what's happened. And you look at it, we were going to start obviously with the Jota stuff, but news today, Franny, came out that Callum McGregor, Celtic, with their cryptic Twitter post with the highlight reel of Callum McGregor coming up since he's a wee boy, I think. In the interview today, roughly, he's been there 20 years. This will take him 25 years at Celtic Football Club, possibly towards the end of his career. I don't see him moving on anytime soon, or I don't think he wants to move. I think he'll be a one-club guy, apart from that kind of stint at Notts County, but you can't really count that. But how vital was it for Celtic to get him over the line, and also the influence since Scott Brown's left that he's brought to that team?
It's going to sound strange. I don't think it was vital we got it done, because maybe ignorantly I looked at Callum McGregor as a player that would never leave, so it was never really one that concerned me, that I was really saying, I really hope we get him tied in a new contract. I'm more happy that he's been rewarded for especially his last few years anyway, as captain and stuff, since Postacoglu's came in. As I say, he taken on the captaincy role. He's grew as a player, he's probably grew as a man, and we all know how difficult the first season could have been. Obviously, it started slightly difficult. Probably it was difficult going through the season, and it's been well documented how much an influence guys like McGregor, Joe Hart were in that dressing room. So I think it's nice. By the way, that's interesting if he is. Which, like, side note, if he's getting 60 grand, that opens us up to another sort of market of players. But
maybe we could afford Jota again.
Not quite. Jota still on double that, and you're still not got Jota back. But no, I think it's more important for me that we're rewarding such a guy for his commitment to Celtic, because I think I was slightly concerned first time when Rodgers went to Leicester that McGregor might have been able to be enticed to go down to the Premiership and try his luck at Leicester with a manager he can trust, who got really good performances out on first time round and stuff. But for me, maybe it's sort of how I look at Callum McGregor. I don't think we'll properly give him the credit he's deserved week in, week out. Like when we were talking about player of the year and stuff, we probably gave Callum McGregor a wee nod, but we're always saying your Hatatis, your Kyogos and stuff. I know your strikers always get it, but McGregor's consistent season, week on week. His performances are consistent. So I think maybe the contract thing, maybe a wee touch of that, where we just take McGregor for granted a wee bit with the contract. Personally, myself, I was never concerned about him going away. But I'm glad he's been rewarded. And if, like I say, I heard that figure as well that Jed said 60 grand. A wee bit of me, the wee, ken how we like a rumour, Stephen. I'm just total gone away off on a tangent with rumours and that and stuff when we're maybe got to get. It's kind of always well reported as well that your captain's your highest paid player within the club. Now, is it got to be a great look, maybe bringing in a top player and paying him more than the captain? Now you put the captain on the big bucks. It's bring in the big boys now. All the big boys are coming in. Your Readers, your McTominays, your Borges, all them. They're all coming in big money and we're skint in 2 weeks.
I mean, if the rumours are right, Anthony, and he's on 60k a week, I think Franny pointed it out there that it opens up a different landscape of a footballer that we could possibly attract. And I don't think it's really anything major that if we pay him 60 grand a week. I don't think it's going to break the bank because we're cash rich. The board always say that, and when they release interim accounts and all that type of stuff. But kind of go back to the importance of him, Anthony. You seen very early on when Ronnie came in, he was down to use him, but he didn't know where to utilise him. He was on the wings, it didn't suit him. Then he went down to Notts County, and then when Rodgers came in the first time, he really settled into that kind of number 8 role alongside Brown and Armstrong at the time. With that in the back of your mind, I think Rodgers played a role in getting him over the line in terms of this 5-year deal because Rodgers made it known as well. Like Franny said, he tried to get him at Leicester. He was one of the players he wanted to take with him, but I think McGregor rejected the advances, and I think that's testament to the guy and the character of the man because, again, we're going to speak about it later in the podcast, but money speaks. I mean, money talks, and sometimes players would be like, I want to go down to the Premier League for an extra 30, 40 grand a week, but McGregor stayed put. He's winning the trophies. He's making the memories, and to be fair to him, I think for me it's an excellent bit of business, and from Celtic, and also for him to sign that contract.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think, like Franny says, I wasn't sure how long he had left on his current deal anyway. So it wasn't the most kind of, we need to get this guy tied up, but it might just be a case that it might have been one of Brendan's kind of sort of red lines, as it were, that we need to get him signed up. Essentially, 2028, I think he would be, about 35 then, and so he's essentially tying himself down at Celtic for life. He's given us, we're probably in his peak years at the moment, and, he's given us everything before this, and, we've got plenty more years of him. Hopefully more sights of him lifting plenty of trophies at Hampden and Parkhead as well. I totally agree. Excellent bit of business for the club, and it just keeps this little bit of momentum going. I think it's probably gearing up for the announcements of new signings coming in, probably as pre-season progresses. But these are just big statements of intent that we've done. We've lost Ange and Jota, but in the meantime, we've rehired an absolute top draw manager in Brendan Rodgers. We've tied up Kyogo, we've tied up Maeda. These big players, and now the captain's signed on as well. It's just absolutely excellent. And whilst the mainstream media like to suspend any even faintest idea of critical thinking when they're looking at the Bosman signings being made for the revolution across the river, we got on with the business of doing proper grown-up deals and just getting the big boys, the winners, the treble winners, signed down on long-term contracts. That's the levels to this game, son.
Nah, I can't hear a word you're saying, mate.
No, don't wind me up. I can hear me. No, 100%, Anthony, I get what you're saying. I'm looking at my granddad's name there, Lorcan. I hope that's Lawrence in Irish, and you haven't just done that by mistake. But good evening, Grandad, good to see you on. I think as well, Jed Thomas, the profits we've made from Jota deal will finance Kyogo, Maeda and Callum McGregor new deals 100%. And seeing obviously in terms of the progress as a player, Franny, and this could be a whole separate podcast, you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but who do you think Callum McGregor's played his best football under? Was it Rodgers the first time? Was it Postecoglou? Or was it Neil Lennon?
It's hard because I think for the last 2 seasons in that number 6 role, I think McGregor's been very key. But you can see that with certainly these 3 players that have signed on for longer deals. But for the last 2 seasons, I think in that number 6, being the guy that kind of breaks it up a wee bit, like breaks up the play, but he's also got that better range of passing. Like, no disrespect to Scott Brown, but McGregor's a better better football in them, better ball playing midfielder and things like that, has a better range of passing. So I suppose maybe the style of football, how free flowing the players round about him at the time, it maybe helps. But that time, first time with Rodgers, obviously we can't comment. This time, I'm assuming he'll still play that number 6, so I don't see him advancing. I mean, he has been outstanding under every manager, in fairness. I think later, Lennon sort of the first time round, he slowed down a wee bit. I think him and Brown, it felt a wee bit sideways passing, keeping the ball safe. But certainly first time round under Rodgers, playing in that sort of a number 10 role, I think he's in. Did you see the best? I think it's he was really good in that number 10. Played the playmaker role, got plenty of goals and stuff. His numbers were really good. Wasn't great in the left back position under Rodgers, but less said about that, the better, I guess. But I'm going to put my neck on that. For me, it's a toss-up between Rodgers' first season and the 10 and the last 2 seasons, but I'm going to put my neck on the line and say the last 2 seasons under Anja, I think he's been frightening.
To be fair, I'm probably tend to agree with you in that instance. Obviously, with Rodgers, Anthony, you've seen the more attacking side of Callum McGregor, breaking into the box, getting the late runs, getting the goals. But obviously, later on, that changed when Bernie left. He dropped into the 6th position. Lenny kind of took that on, and then Postecoglou when he was made captain and stuff like that. And I think for me, he dictates games so easily, the tempo of the game. And you go back to that John Collins thing, scanning. Tempo, scanning. That's always what it is, and Callum McGregor does that the best in domestic football anyway for us. And I think for me as well, what I love about him, how he's adapted to the captain role. And you can go way back in the archives of our podcast, and you'll find people talking about maybe Julian, maybe Ayer being the replacement, the Brown, and being the captain. But I think we all knew in the back of our minds it would be Callum McGregor, and to come through that and follow in the footsteps of an absolute great leader, there's no question about it, in Scott Brown. But I think he's took it to a different level, and he's going to overtake probably him in honours and major honours and trophies. And then by the time he retires, he'll be literally his cabinet will be chock full of medals. And I just think for me, like Franny, I think Postecoglou, maybe it's the development of his game, but I think just putting him in that 6th position, letting him dictate the games, I think that's the way forward. And I don't think Rodgers will change that.
No, I wouldn't have imagined so, especially as if we're going to be sort of reinvesting in the midfield as well. Like you say, I think under Brendan the first time when he cemented his place in the team, he was more attacking mind, a little bit more dynamic, so which probably excites the crowd a little bit more. But definitely under Ange, he's taken the captaincy as well. You know, it's no mean feat taking over for Scott Brown, but he's done it, you could argue, relatively seamlessly. You know, there's a few hiccups at the start of the season, the first season under Ange, but that was always going to be expected anyway, considering how big that rebuild that summer was. But ever since then, you know, he's never really looked back. But like you say, he's probably overlooked for Player of the Year because his excellence and his standards are so consistent, and so, you know, that happens so often that it's only when he has a really poor game, which is, you know, once in a blue moon, that you really notice. Any other time, it's just that he's just a fantastic footballer and keeps those standards high, and he makes sure that all his teammates do as well. So, like I say, not the most urgent bit of business in terms of, you know, length of contract, or he was down to the last year or anything like that. But I think just as a symbol of, you know, big changes again at Celtic this summer, but one of the things that is staying consistent is our treble winning captain, he's won 5 trebles now in his career at Celtic. He's going nowhere. So it's, you know, should put the fear of God into anyone that wants to class ourselves as a rival.
I mean, to be fair, like as well, I mean, one of the taglines on the show on Friday when you watch back was, "Well, is there more good news coming, Anthony?" And to be fair, I think the board, whoever is in charge of these contract deals, have fairly delivered. So, I mean, we can't praise Rodgers and praise Callum for doing it. We'll have to give a wee bit of praise to the boardroom. And if the rumours are led to be correct and he's on 60k a week, that's some outlay for us being ignorant to it, because we haven't pushed the boat out that far. But if it's true and that's happened, it's fantastic. And I think you have to give praise to Dermot Desmond and Michael Nicholson and Mark Lowell for sitting them down and getting this deal thrashed out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know I've had many criticisms of the board and our time over the time we've been doing this show, Stephen. And I think the sort of grievances that I've aired, I think, have been valid. But by the same point, you've got to give credit where credit's due. And the last wee while, they've been knocking it out the park. They really have. You just stay out the way, let the manager, whoever that may be, get on with his job. He recognises the targets, go out and get that business done. We're a well-oiled machine at the moment. Everything's moving in the one direction, and you got to give everyone and the board credit for getting these deals done. And I think as well, we kudos to the media side of it as well, because I don't know about you guys, I'm loving these little clips now when it's it's just a little nod and a wink to the camera, just a couple of minutes before the official announcement comes up. They know exactly what they're doing, these guys, and like I say, hopefully there's more good news to come on the contracts and transfer front to come before the season gets underway.
100%. Chris M comes in. Do you gents think there will be a bit of push to get signings in before going to Japan so the new players will benefit from that too? We're going to come on to that, Chris, later on in terms of signings possibly coming in, because you know it, I know it, me and Franny, maybe not so much Anthony, we love a rumour, so don't worry. We'll be talking rumours, we'll be talking new signings coming in. Monty, when Brendan starts to add to the team, I don't think it'll be squad players, 3 or 4 big hitters. I'm along them lines as well, Monty. I believe that will happen. Everyone's happy that John's in the chat. We can't wait to get John back in the podcast as well. So good you're tuning in, buddy. Quinny's in from the Celts are here as well. Did a good podcast with him. Great to see you along with. In terms of it, Franny, we'll kind of leave the Callum McGregor chat. Obviously, it's well covered by every Celtic page you can imagine. I think we covered it quite well. And we'll go on to a certain Portuguese superstar, could have been superstar, who left us to join Al Ittihad for £27 million, I believe, £192,000 a week. It took him the best part of a week to get a farewell message out there. How did you feel watching it? And also as well, I mean, I know Anthony's got I can't wait to hear Anthony's because he told me off air, so I'm quite excited for that. But how do you feel about it? And what was your emotion like rewatching that kind of stuff and hearing what he was saying? I mean, some of the lines were like, "I loved you more than I love my girlfriends," and "Believe me, we were crazy in love," and "What a fucking ride," and all that type of stuff. There's a mystical fog around Parkhead, and I mean, you referenced it I think a year or so ago. It could be birthday card pish. Don't mean to steal your thunder there, but from Felipe Yada, did you believe it? How did you feel? And is it just one of them ones? Maybe just should have left that.
Well, I don't know if I should have left it. I honestly don't know. It just seems a common theme now for players now when they leave. They seem to do these messages. I don't know when it started, but it just seems a common theme now that players seem to do a wee going away message, so to speak. And for me, I'm neither here nor there. I don't need for it. I don't need for it. Nor do I care if I do it. Honestly, I'll take it or leave it. These things. Obviously, Jed's wife doesn't watch the podcast.
You get the camp there out.
I could take it or leave it, but it's. I mean, I bloody loved it right enough. I've not got to deny it. Like I ate every word of it. Like you say, Stephen, it possibly is birthday card pish. It possibly, but then is it because he's sat in it for a week? Maybe when you actually, if you do watch it and try, it's obviously hard for us as Celtic fans to take the emotion out of it. But I think if you try and watch it with taking the emotion out of it, it does seem like heartfelt words. It's maybe that's the reason why it's taken a week to come out. Obviously, he's got to show a wee bit of respect to his new club and things like that. But it was one of them. I couldn't really care for it. It's similar to how Ross and Willie, mainly Ross, rips me in the group chat and that, and he's too fast. You struggle with comebacks against the both of them, especially Ross. But then you end up putting that wee comment in, and he'll give you the wee thumbs up emoji and that, and you're like, "Oh, we're back in the game." That's how I've been with Jota. That's how I've been with Jota. I was like, "Oh, he's annoying me. I do want him to say something. He's annoyed me by leaving, and then he gives us all that, and I'm back on board. He's still my screensaver. I was ready to take him off, but our dear Prince for Portugal, he'll stay for a couple of days longer. I mean, I was slowly getting there the fact that he's left him, because I think he's a proper player. Like, outside Callum McGregor, I thought he was our best player. Arguably, he was my favourite player. Although I think in this current crop, it's kind of hard. I think we've got a lot of relatable players, a lot of players you can connect to and things like that. But I was so out of the place with emotions after seeing it. It was one of the ones, like you say, it shows the fickle nature of football fan, because you were maybe just kind of getting at it, and then he goes and does that. Aye, maybe I'm a snowflake. I didn't ken, but I found it interesting. I wish I could grow a mullet. It would, by the way, I would maybe get it at the back, but it would stop growing at the front, Corvo. Trust me. This hat's hiding a nice receding hairline, but I find it interesting as well, because you and Willie kind of touched on that on Friday, talking about how Ange seems to be getting a different reaction to Jota leaving, and I found all that interesting. The fact that he came out, said what he said. It was a great message, a nice message. I believe it. He seems a very, very cultured man. He's said that before, that he likes new cultures and things like that. He likes to get involved in it. And I mean, they do say, players and managers do say, that you fall in love with this club. I mean, there's no certain. You don't need to be a club for X amount of time to necessarily fall in love with it. He clearly had that connection with the fans. You see how he went to like the Brazen Head and things. He's obviously had a lot of special moments. It
turns out, Franny, he went to the Brazen Head to try and find Bernardy.
possibly just to take his car keys off him. But he clearly got himself involved in the club and outside the club while he was here. So I'm willing to take the guy at face value. He's a young boy. He attained his first real big chat. Obviously, went to I think it was Real Valladolid in Spain. It never really worked out for him. Taking a risk coming on loan to Celtic, then taking a punt by coming permanent. Obviously, we taking a risk on him to see what he could have been like second season round. And had so many big moments. He seemed like a top player. It was a top player. Seems like a good enough lad. I as I say, I really enjoyed it, and every word of it, whether it was birthday card pish or not, every word of it.
Yeah, I mean, McGrandle comes in. Why we're still talking about Jota, he left the biggest supported team in the world. I mean, we're covering his maybe his heartfelt message, or maybe not. Anthony has a different view here. I'll tell you where I'm sitting at, right? When I sent that into the group chat yesterday, I watched it and I had my soup and I ate it, because I thought, wow, that it was incredible. But when I come on beforehand with Anthony, he picked me up like a little boy and slapped me around the cheeks, and he made me realise a few things that might just be, to me, it might just be correct here. So, Anthony, how are you feeling about it? And let's have your honest take.
Yeah, listen, anyone who felt that they enjoyed it and stuff, that's absolutely fair game. For what it's worth, I don't think he was sort of saying anything. It wasn't the kind of birthday card nonsense or anything like that. I do think he genuinely meant what he was saying. My whole sort of thing is that, though, I'm totally ambivalent to it either way. I get that it's, as Franny's saying, it's more common now. It's something that happens all the time. We've seen it obviously with Mason Mount moving from Chelsea to Man United as well. He felt the need to do this kind of this convoluted message to the fans to give them extra closure and things. And I'll be honest, maybe it's more for the folk that are on social media more often that this constant desire and need for content. We need a farewell message, we need a welcome message, we need an update, we need an apology if I miss a penalty in a game. I just find it all a little bit staged and a little bit saccharine, and just sort of I don't see the point in it, shall I say. He was at Celtic for 2 years. He was at Celtic for 2 years. Played with, he was a fantastic player for us. Like Franny was, as I used to say in the group chat, just keep giving Jota the ball. That was always my thing at the games. Just keep giving him the ball. That's it. But loved him as a player. But I'm also quite obvious of the fact that when that kind of money gets offered, the club are going to accept it, and he's going to want to go. I've obviously said last week as well when we were talking about where he's went. Obviously, the news broke when we were doing the show last week. It's not. I can completely understand why he's went, but by the same token, let's not put in any way that it's a footballing decision. He's set himself and his future generations, his family up for life, and fair enough. But his football career is essentially over. It's a semi-retirement that he's went in. He's not going to develop as a player over there, and he's not going to get anywhere near the national team playing for the Saudis.
Nah.
So that's kind of it now. And I didn't need a closure, like an official closing message for Ange either, or any other player for that matter. I don't need guys that have been here for a couple of years to tell me how big my club is or how amazing my club is. And I just think, for the people that wanted it and enjoyed it, that's absolutely fine. But I find all these things a little bit staged, if I'm being perfectly honest, mate. And it's the same, I know we've not actually had an official one from Ange, but I know he obviously mentioned us in his press conference today. I took his post-match the chat with the media when he was saying about, I was regarded as a joke, but, these guys very quickly took me in as one of their own and stuff. That was his farewell message to me. The fact that he didn't announce after the game that he was staying, that to me was like, right, well, he's going then. And that was his sort of way of saying farewell. And I know, obviously, Jota put up something on Instagram. I think it was the next day of the two of them hugging each other, just when he came off in the cup final. And that to me was his farewell. Right, okay, it's great. Football's a grown-up business. Players move on, but the fans will always be here, and the club will move on. There's been, with the greatest respect to Jota, there's been bigger and better players moved on than him. Greater player that he is, but club's still here. 135 years later, so all the best to him. But I didn't need the farewell video.
And I don't
And
know.
where's Stephen off to?
There he is. There he is. This happened to you a couple of weeks ago. This happened to you a couple of weeks ago, didn't it?
Yeah, he just fell off there. Technical issues.
Did you finish what you said? Yeah.
Yeah. I was just saying, basically, good luck to him, and no ill feelings. But I'm not the type of person that needs staged farewell messages to make myself feel good.
To be fair, I built myself up to say and breathe, but that totally fucking out the window there. But no, I do get what you're saying, and I think in the comments here, it's probably 50-50 in terms of people saying it was great and stuff like that. And I think Pam agrees with yourself and Joe P as well, Anthony, in terms of what that meant to her Paul Dat inverted podcasters. But Jed Thomas Stevens left for more money. But it as well, you look at it, I mean, just final word on it. Obviously, in my point of view, yesterday I loved the fact that the message came out, but the more you think about it, I mean, there was people filming it and doing close-up angles of him and all that type of stuff. So he probably bought a whole production team for that 192k a week he was getting, and that's why he took the week, because he needed to get the first pay packet. And he's
like
released
a Hollywood
it.
production.
It was like a Hollywood production. He's released it. That's fair enough, and I think for us it's time to move on. In terms of Imposter Cogley, I don't really want to go over that today. It wasn't for me. It wasn't a farewell. It was just him kind of talking the way he used to at us all the time. So I'll leave that in the back burner. But one thing I do want to touch upon, Franny, and I'll come to you first. That's if I don't disappear off screen randomly again. Is Carter-Vickers was on the plane over to Portugal for the pre-season camp. It looks like, according to things in the papers and Twitter, that he's ahead of recovery time. And I think that's a great boost for the team and also get into the Champions League in the new season.
Oh, no, totally is. I think the quicker we can get him back, the better. Just simply, we know how key he is. He's absolutely pivotal. We don't want to rush him back. I don't think we will. Obviously, sports science is there now that you just can't get away with rushing him back. I know he obviously played through the pain barrier a wee bit and things like that. Obviously played the last sort of meaningful game against Rangers and literally never kicked a ball after it. So I guess it's it was one of the injury. We never ever got told exactly how long he was out for, but it was, or not that I can remember, but I think it was always he was going to miss the start of the season anyway. That may still well be the case, because I think the start of the season's August, like the first week in August anyway. So, I mean, that's not too far away, to be fair. It's not far away. So there's probably still will maybe miss. Probably still miss the start of the season, but it's obviously more reassuring that you see him back, at least travelling with the fans, because and things like that. And then obviously he'll be over there just keeping up his rehab, and then at least Rodgers and all the medical team, the majority of the medical team, because I'm assuming if he had to stay back here, there'd be ones that would have to stay back with him to help him with his rehab. But at least if everybody's there, they can get, Rodgers can see firsthand how he's doing and things like that, and keep up to date with things and stuff, and he can maybe try and integrate him in with the team slightly, just in sort of a more sort of a non-contact type training activities, if he's able to kick a football at this stage and things like that. So it's definitely, I mean, this could have always been part of the timescale. Like, it could be that this is his essentially first training session. He's still got maybe 6-7 weeks. Nah, come on.
Answer that if you want. Go ahead, Franny. Do you think Starfelt might be fully off as his bird left the women's team, or do you think he jumped there?
We're all forward-thinking guys, if you like, and he's a good-looking guy, Starfelt. He's a good-looking guy, but I think he's more chance of leaving Celtic than dumping her. She'd be the one dumping him. Let's be honest.
To be fair, I wouldn't mind Jacinta doing a farewell video.
Nah.
Well.
Say no more.
Correct. We didn't pretend to like the women's game on this podcast.
All depends what platform you mean, Anthony. But back to Carter-Vickers there, Franny. What was saying?
I mean, this could always been part of the plan, is getting him back for the pre-season tour of Portugal, or training in Portugal. So it's maybe necessarily no news at the end of the day, Stephen, but it's more positive seeing pictures of him. Doesn't look like he's got any sort of a bandage and any sort of moon boot or anything on it.
Moon boot.
Well, you see them nowadays. They go after like a wee torn, like just any sort of injury, and they just seen them coming out of stadiums with their suit on and a bloody moon boot, and you're like, oh, fuck off, that's just for the pictures, isn't it? But she is a beautiful human being. But as I say, it could have been part of the plan, Stephen. But it's always positive to see him. It's always positive to see these type of guys back with the team sooner rather than later. But it could be 4 or 5 weeks away for full training. We just don't know where he is in his recovery. But yeah, it's definitely more positive seeing them than not seeing them.
Yeah, I totally agree with what he said there, Anthony, in terms of having him back integrated with the team. I think Rodgers would want that, the nucleus of the team together, regardless if he's fit to do full contact training or just getting back onto the grass again. But speaking about Carter-Vickers, and even after this injury and looking back in the previous seasons as well, for Brendan Rodgers, I mean, coming into at defence with Carter-Vickers and Starfelt, pretty solid unit. I don't think they still have lost a domestic game together, which is absolutely fantastic. Clean sheet for days. And do you think that's a solid foundation for Rodgers to build on, get into next season having them two, and especially Vickers when he's on top form?
Yeah, absolutely. Although I do think centre half is probably one of the areas that Brendan might look to spend some of that supposed war chest on, because I think regardless, like you say, it's great that he's ahead of schedule, but he's still going to take a while to get back to, peak CCV as we know and love him. And unless maybe the Kobayashi's going to benefit from, having that proper pre-season. He didn't fully convince everybody last year that he was going to be, sort of ready-made replacement for any of the two of them. And I think just with the Champions League this year, it's going to be so vital that we've got and especially with the offside rule changes as well, that it's really important that we've got two, top drawer centre halves at the back there, So it might well be the case that that's somewhere where Brendan looks to strengthen. But no, to answer your question, mate, having Carter-Vickers back, head the schedule and back in that starting lineup as soon as possible will be absolutely brilliant. He's an absolute colossus at the back for us. And in a year, we've always kind of had at least one, decent centre half over the years. You think obviously Virgil van Dijk and guys like that, and you can go even further back. You look at the likes of Johan Mialbe, etc. But Carter-Vickers is right up there with any of them. He makes defending look so easy, and as we all know, it's anything but. But he makes it look easy and just brings that air of security to the back four. So yeah, can't wait to have him back, fully fit and doing what he does best.
I don't know if it's me, but I feel like did you see him freeze a lot there, Franny? I don't know if that was me.
No, it must have just been you.
It must have been me. And there's technical issues happening all over here for me, so I do apologise if I'm not with the flow. But Anthony, I got the gist of what you're saying. Like you said, he's a colossus at the back, and if you look through the years, Van Dijk, Bobaldi, Mialbe, McManus even as well, coming up, and Christopher Ayer, and having someone like Carter-Vickers to build the base on, I think is fantastic. Who knows? Maybe the next good news is the big American's going to sign a new 5-year contract. We'll never know, because the good news seems to be coming quick and fast at the moment. But we'll go on to the pre-season camp. Franny, I'm going to look at some of the fringe players. And I mean, this doesn't have to be really in depth, but to see if they have a chance or have the chance in the future to stay with Celtic. And one player I want to start with, I mean, it could be Rodgers is favourite to me. Give him a chance here. Mickey Johnson, he brought him into the squad very early on in his tenure when he was there the first time. He was involved in some high-profile games. He also hung him out to dry once, playing him up front against Rangers before as a lone striker, which I thought was absolutely awful. But all signs point to the fact that, as well, that he had a good season in Portugal. He scored a few goals. He assisted a few goals. His injuries didn't creep up like they did with us. Can you see him getting a strong foot in here in pre-season and maybe possibly being involved at the start of the season anyway?
I mean, quite possible. Like you said, Rodgers did give him his sort of a chance in that. I think he played a wee bit under Rodgers. I think he done okay. There's no denying the boy's got a bit of talent. The boy's got some talent. No got to deny that. You don't get to a club like Celtic without having a level of talent. But for me, as I say, I think he had a decent spell out in Portugal without knowing much about the Portuguese league. I think what you see and read about it seemed to be that he had a fairly successful in terms of he played a lot of first team football and not necessarily off the bench and stuff. So I think he was getting a good chance of building himself up as a first team regular player as opposed to just being involved in a squad. So there definitely will be opportunities. It'll be a clean slate, like that cliche. It's a clean slate and with a new gaffer, so to speak, coming in. Players will just be starting from afresh. But Brendan Rodgers, maybe, potentially. By the way, probably is. But for me, Rodgers, he knows Celtic. He'd have probably been keeping a wee eye on them. He'll know that Mikey Johnson was obviously out in loan. For me, I think it's not even now or bust for Johnson. I don't think he's. I don't see it for me. Will they get a chance in pre-season? Probably, because it's pre-season. Yeah. Tons of folk get a chance. And you never know. It might cause a surprise and turn in some really good performances and get a good couple of games at the start of the season. And give Rodgers something to think about. Maybe he'll maybe say prove to Rodgers, going, look, you maybe don't need to go and spend some money to fill in for Jota. He might say to himself, look, I can be that guy. Personally, I don't see it. For me, he's always just been labelled as the next best big thing or the next breakthrough from Celtic. You can't just be that guy season on season. And I think when you're getting that sort of name tag season on season, then you go out on loan, for me, the writing's on the wall. I think he'll go and carve himself a good career in football. For me, I think it's a way for Celtic. Now, people might touch on Ryan Christie saying how he came in and went away on loan. because I think they're maybe similar ages when Christie went to Aberdeen than what Mikey Johnson's. But for me, it's different because Mikey Johnson's came up through the ranks, had his chance under a Rodgers, which was what was Rodgers 5 years ago, and he still no managed to nail down a regular position. He's had his injuries. He's had his issues with injuries and stuff like that. I think it was against St Johnstone where he came on when he was injured and was back off about 5 minutes later. And Lennon had that infamous one where he told him to fuck off. I personally don't think that's helped him out massively. Like maybe confidence maybe hit him a wee bit. But for me, I would be amazed if Mikey Johnson has a future at Celtic. I didn't see it. As I say, he'll carve out a decent enough football career. I just think it needs to be away for Celtic. I don't know how many first chances or how many chances you give a guy. You must be of the same because you kept on saying similar things about Griffiths. How many chances do you give Griffiths? How many chances do you give Michael Johnson?
What a way to throw me onto the bus there, Franny. No, but to be fair, like the way I look at this as well, and I do agree with yourself, to be honest, Mikey Johnson has always been labelled the next big thing. He's 24 now. He's past the teenage years. He's past the wonder kid years, and you can't really say that. He should be an established first team player, whether with us or another team. Another thing I think as well, you have to take into account here, psychological. Mikey Johnson might not just be able to cut it at Celtic because he's always injuries, maybe it's stress injuries, stress fractures, all that type of stuff. And it seems to be a constant theme, Anthony. I remember when Sean Maloney came back the second time, and it looked like he was always getting injured. He was always on the treatment table, and the people were saying that could have been psychological issues at that time. And that's no fault of the player. It's just the way your mindset goes sometimes. You don't want to go for that tackle. You don't want to make that long burst and run. You don't want to take players on because you're afraid of your career basically being over at Celtic Football Club. And I think Mikey Johnson fell into that trap because you've seen him lose that wee bit of flair. And especially after Lenny told him to fuck off, like Franny said, the confidence when he came back was low. He wasn't making an impact like he did before. When Rodgers first came in, don't get me wrong, I was so excited to see Mikey Johnson on the pitch. And the way he could be so dynamic in the box, he was getting past players, he was scoring wonderful goals. But gradually that got lost over the course of time. And I think for me, the breakaway to Portugal done him the world of good. It took him away from that environment, put him in a brand new environment with different players, different cultures of way of playing football, learning different languages as well, which is, I mean, you've seen Scottish players go to Serie A. I mean, Hickey and Josh Doyes and Lewis Ferguson, sometimes they benefit from a change of scenery. And for me, unfortunately, he has all the talent in the world, but I just don't think we'll see that flourish at Celtic.
Yeah, it might well be the case, mate. That's definitely where the sort of logical train of thought would take you. I'm like yourself. I mean, I've always got a soft spot for Mikey Johnson because he scored when I took Jude to his first game. He was actually man of the match against Dundee that day. It was just before Christmas back in 2018, so still within Rodgers' first tenure. And he ran the show that day and, as I say, opened the scoring. And you're absolutely bang on. He is definitely somebody you can tell plays on confidence. And I think he's also one of those textbook players that kind of feed off certain types of management and don't react to others. I know, obviously, He gets a lot of stick about what happened up at McDermott Park that night, but you could turn it the other way. Is when he said, I know, obviously, we'd used up all our substitutes, and that's what caused Lennon to react in the way he did. But you see him asking him, "Are you okay to play on?" And he says, "Yeah." But he obviously knows at the back of his mind that he has picked up a knock. Mm-hmm. So maybe that shows his mindset of still trying to do everything he can to stay on the park and prove himself. So, there's two ways of looking at that. But definitely, Lenny's type of management is not suited to Mikey's personality. So
totally true. Totally
true.
That's
it. I would definitely sort of say that what I liked about Mikey Johnson was when he was there under Brendan, and perhaps the time away, like you say, it could work out. It could work in his favour. Getting that change. And I've seen him when he played for the Republic of Ireland in a match. Back in the springtime there, and he had a great game. So it would be. I'd love nothing more than to Brendan to get that kind of tune out of him and get him back to the type of player that we know he can be. But like you guys are saying, time is fast running out for him, and it might be the case that his career will carry on in pastures new. But listen, he's definitely potentially got a wee chance here in the pre-season to show that, it's maybe not finished for him just yet. And, me always try and stay positive about things, Stephen. This time 2 years ago, can you imagine us saying with a new manager coming in that Tony Ralston was going to have the purple patch that he did? We probably laughed everyone each other at the building. And he's been on to, he's not became a mainstay, but he's certainly forged his place in that important role in the Celtic squad. And he's always there for crucial games where the whole playing the fixture comes into things. So if we could have a bit of a renaissance like that, then there's maybe still a bit of a future. But I have to say, I'm with you on the fact, when I close my eyes, I don't see it, but you never know.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right to reference Ralston. I mean, when he got that extension, I think the majority of the fan base were absolutely fuming at the point that he got that 1 year extension. But at the end of the day, like you said, Anthony, stranger things have happened. He went on to play a major part, especially in the first season under Postecoglou, scoring up a Dingwall, all that type of stuff. Do you know what I mean? But it's the way I see it with MJ, all the talent in the world, and I just don't think he's going to cut it at Celtic. And that's no slight on him. Franny nailed it. He'll have a good footballing career, whether it's abroad or even here in Scotland with it, like a Hibs or an Aberdeen. I can see him really kicking on that way. But another guy, I'll come straight back to Anthony, an Irishman, Liam Scales. He was loaned to Aberdeen last season. Bit of a sketchy record there, a couple of sending-offs. Obviously, the famous wonder goal he scored against Rangers. I think it was at Ibrox, wasn't he? He scored that. He fizzed it in. Baudry, fair enough. But a bit of an up and down time for him. He was in and out of the team. I know, obviously, they changed manager. Barry Robson came in. He was straight back in. He was a part of that run when I think they went like 9 or 10 games unbeaten and they got them European football. But can you see Liam Scales coming in? It wasn't so long ago. We all thought he would be challenging Greg Taylor for the left back position. Didn't quite work out that way. But could this be a Ryan Christie evolution? Comes back in and stakes his claim?
You just never know. Although, again, I'm sort of like yourself, Stephen. I think, he didn't really set the heather on fire up at Pittodrie, and that was kind of really a place where his talents really should have been shining through. Even if the team itself weren't necessarily playing great, he should have been standing out as one of the standout players. And wonder goal against the bootleg Rangers aside, he didn't really leave much of an impression. I don't think there was any Aberdeen fans necessarily clamouring for them to get him back on loan for another season the way they were with Christie. But you just never know. As I said, I think that's the great thing about when you have a new manager in, that you obviously know that what the type of things that he's capable of, and coaching is one of Brendan's strong points, and he can turn good players into great players, and great players to hit even higher heights as well. So you just never know. And as I say, definitely with these types of pre-season games, we'll definitely see him feature, and it's up to him to prove his worth.
That's two players that Anthony sat in that fence. You're going to have splinters in your arse, big man, if you don't give a straight answer here. But Brian Warrior said something earlier in the comments, Ronnie. Liam Scales gives us the option to go to a back three. Now, we've seen Rodgers do that with a 3-5-2 at Leicester. And we also know Alistair Johnson can fill in the back three. He's done that quite a lot with his previous team in the MLS. But like I said, Anthony, and like he said as well, he didn't really set anything on fire up at Aberdeen. I haven't seen any real clamour online. Usually we see like a wee Twitter thread wanting back. This is who we need, and to get him back into the team again. But it doesn't seem like that's happening. Me, for one, I don't think he'll be at Celtic. I think he'll end up either at an Aberdeen or Hibs again, or just transferred out altogether. He came probably a Dermot Desmond signing from Shamrock Rovers and hasn't worked out, and that's just the way it goes sometimes for players at Celtic.
It certainly is. I think for me, like I've said, I think he'd done okay up at Aberdeen. Obviously, when Barry Robson came in, he performed slightly better, but so did the whole team perform a lot better and things. But I agree, he does give us that option to go free at the back, but so does Kobayashi, who may benefit more with having a couple guys next to him and stuff. But I can't remember Brendan Rodgers ever really playing a back three well at Celtic. Maybe did it at Leicester. I don't think he did it. If he did, he never done it regularly. I think he seems not stubborn in the whole 4-2-3-1, but it's a bit like the 4-3-3. Aye. A bit like the 4-3-3 and the 4-2-3-1. It's a fashionable sort of formations now. So I'd be surprised if he goes to three at the back. I mean, I think some of us would like him to do it because it gives him an option to go two up top. But for me, I don't see him doing it. I don't see Scales having a future at Celtic. I think, strangely, I would argue Mikey Johnson's got more chance of a career at Celtic than
good point. Actually,
than
good point.
Scales. I think he'll be moved. Will he be kept? I think a lot about Liam Scales. Obviously, it'll be depend on the boys' ambition. But if we had to keep Stephen Welsh, I think we'll obviously need to consider this Scottish quota. I don't think Liam Scales, for obvious reasons, won't count for that. I don't think he so. I think if Stephen Welsh goes, Scales may stay around. Brendan Rodgers might talk and go, well, we've just got rid of a defender where your chances you'll get your chances, but it's more we actually need cover in there. You'll maybe play a couple games, maybe some of the cup games, mate, but you'll not really feature big in league. For me, I would obviously try and move them on, just get them out the door. You don't want to keep players there that you're not really going to use, but I think depending on Scales may hang around or may get kept around depending on what happens with Stephen Welsh. But for me, I would get rid of him. I would get rid of him if I could.
And that's who the next player we're going to talk about, Franny, is Stephen Welsh, who's been linked with every transfer window with French clubs like Toulouse and Udinese over in Italy and people like that. It seems like there's concrete interest again this summer. Like you mentioned, the quota. I mean, if you look at our centre backs, Carter-Vickers, Starfelt, Bosun Lawwell, Yuki Kobayashi, Stephen Welsh. Am I forgetting anybody? I don't think I am in that instance. But you look at that, and he's far down the pecking order, which is clear for everyone to see. If you're going to cash in on him, I would do it this window. I don't think he's going to get a look in. I really don't. Last season, even for the cup final, Iwata played centre back. I think that was a big statement by Postecoglou at the time, and Welsh was there and available. And again, it's just the way it goes. People are saying I'm being ruthless. Corvo said I was being ruthless. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a story of a homegrown player coming up through the ranks, and more than anybody. Do you know what I mean? I love all that youth players getting the chance. But Stephen Welsh, I think a wee bit like Mickey Johnson, has had chance after chance, and if he was going to be stuck with, it would have been done by now. And like you kind of said there, will it determine if Scale stays? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I expect Celtic to do business in the centre back area, and I think Welsh is on the way out.
I think I'm slightly different with Mikey Johnson. I think for Stephen Welsh's career, it would make sense for Stephen Welsh to move on. Similar to you boys, I think similar to any football fan, we all like a homegrown player to come through and make the grade. You give them more of a chance and stuff. And as much as we've pretty much tried to sip Mikey Johnson out the door, but said we would maybe get rid of him, I think we would all happily eat our words if he made a career, and it's similar to Welsh. Personally, I don't think Welsh is a bad player. Is he better? He's clearly not Carter-Vickers and Starfelt's level, but on the evidence of what I've seen, I would play him before Kobayashi. But again, you've kind of got a caveat with this saying that with Kobayashi's just in the door. I think he's been a wee bit unlucky with guys like how Maeda, how Hatate, how Kyogo, and even to an extent how Iwata done. That three of them certainly hit the ground running. Iwata has been decent enough. Kobayashi, I thought, had a good first couple of games when he came in, but then it was latterly when it seemed when he knew he was starting, that's when he struggled a bit. So, but a new manager coming in, Brendan Rodgers might be able to coach him. He could get the best out of him. So, as much as I think Stephen Welsh is down the pecking order, you've got to look at it again, going back to that whole new manager, the cliche of does it? It gives you the clean slate. So maybe Stephen Welsh will get a chance. Like say he's a homegrown player that may come into the manager's thinking when it comes to Europe and stuff, that we need a quota of these players. Can he work with Welsh to make him more reliable? As I say, I didn't think Welsh was that bad a player. I don't remember any real game where he's let us down. He does lose his fair share of headers, which doesn't help you're a defender, I get, to be fair. But it's not, for me, I would not be looking to move Stephen Welsh on if we're, like, obviously we're just speaking as a squad as it is. We don't know where we're looking to strengthen. But I suspect centre-half probably as a position we would look to strengthen. But for me personally, I would not look to move him on. But I think for the sake of the boy's career, I think he needs to be a wee bit selfish. I think he is a Celtic fan. He's obviously came through the ranks. He'll probably want to make the grade. But I think he needs to be a wee bit selfish for his sale and maybe look to leave Celtic to try and just to try and forge a career for the guy, because you didn't want to just be known as this guy that played 10, 12 games a season, really, for the rest of your career.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And Anthony, just come to yourself to kind of round off and on Stephen Welsh. Where are you sitting on that one? And obviously, people in the comments here are talking about Kobayashi, and most of them are saying they'd rather keep Welsh than Kobayashi. That, I mean, last season, like Franny said, that the last couple of games when he was up against a physical striker, he really struggled. But again, a point to the fact that Postecoglou didn't turn once to Stephen Welsh during that whole time. It was Awada that came in, and again, it was pretty damning from that point of view. So where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the fact that Postecoglou's not here anymore, so it might just be the case of another manager coming in might prefer him. But the problem is, for him, is like you say, he's been around the block a few times. He has had chances. I don't necessarily think he's let us down, but. And I'll try and cut Kobayashi some slack as well, because like I have with all the Japanese players that have come in the January time, they've just came off a season. They've not had a proper pre-season, so we've not really possibly seen the best of them yet. But yeah, as much as I'm always trying to be positive, Stephen, I can't see. I don't see it, to be honest. Nothing against the boy, but I think, as I say, centre half somewhere we would looking to be strengthening over the summer, so that would put him even further down the pecking order. Of course, you've got to take the quota into consideration. That might be what keeps him here, but in terms of a regular first team starter, no, I don't see it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think we're all in kind of agreement for once in this podcast. Welsh may have to move on, but another player, Anthony, come back at you here is Sead Haksabanovic. Obviously, with Jota leaving, possibly that leaves a space for him to take advantage of. I know people prefer him in the number 10 position, but he seems to play in the wing an awful lot when he plays for us. Maybe that will change under Rodgers. We haven't seen the style of play he's going to implement. But can you see him having a decent season? Obviously, the Celtic released pictures today of pre-season. He looks pretty slick with the hair and all them tattoos and that. But where do you see him going? And can you see him really kneeling down a starting position if he gets his head down and does everything that Rodgers asked him to do?
He's certainly got every chance to do it. I mean, I really like Haksabanovic. I think he's technically very, very gifted, but and he featured a little bit more. I think there was obviously the clamour for him to start, and he did against Hearts in the Scottish Cup. Didn't really kind of set the heather on fire that day, but we ran out comfortable winners in the end. But a few of the times where he did come on, or he started after that, he was starting on the right, which isn't, I would argue not his best position. I prefer him more on the left, or like you say, in the more technical role in the 10. But yeah, Paul makes a good point. He's not started many games, granted, but when he has, he's not sort of gave us all a real nailed on reason why he should be starting, so to speak. But of course, with Jota not around, that definitely potentially opens up that opportunity for him. But I think he went through a little phase of coming off the bench and scoring great goals, cutting inside off the wing and putting it in the top corner. He done that quite a few times, kind of late winter into early spring at Celtic. So I certainly hope so. I wouldn't like us to sell him at the moment. I'd like him to get more of an opportunity, because I think there's a real player there.
Yeah, I do apologise, right? There's dogs in the background here. My screens are freezing. So I don't know what's going on. I feel like the tech gremlins are after me this evening. But yeah, I totally agree. I like the cut of Haksabanovic, and he's a bit of a guy who probably finally plays a wee bit of flair on the edge, on the cuff, and just because in terms of, I think Paul said it, in terms of he hasn't started a game. When he starts, he hasn't done well. That's a concern for me. But when he comes on, and again, this is a bit contradictory, but when the pressure's off, he's fantastic. And I hope Rodgers can kind of tap into that mentality and release that pressure and just say, play with freedom and express yourself on the pitch. Because you look at what he's done with Armstrong, Christie, players like that, I believe he can probably get in that mindset of Haksabanovic and really kick him on. So are you excited to see what you're going to see from him this season?
I'm excited to see it. I think he's a really, really good player. He's a proper European style player. I think I think he's got lots of bags and bags of talent, but it's shown that more regular, shown that, like Anthony said, and guys in the comments, I can't really pick even one game that he'd done that when he started. I appreciate he never started lots of games and he was in and out the team. He wasn't necessarily in regular, so that could kind of affect him. But certainly when he came off of the bench as an impact sub, he more than often than not was turned in a good performance. I'm more excited to see him. I mean, you could argue there's not necessarily similarities to Mikey Johnson, but
I love watching Alfie. I love watching Alfie holding it as yawn. It's so funny. Go ahead, Franny.
Is there similarities to like Mikey Johnson? He was just not really that potentially, but I wouldn't say too much. He's only been here one season. Obviously, I don't think he'd played for a wee while because he obviously came over from Russia. And obviously, the conflict over there. He obviously wasn't playing any football. So I think he needs to get off to a good start to the season. I think if he fulfills a similar role to what he done under Ange, I can't see him really hanging about much longer. I think. Not saying he'll maybe leave in the January, but maybe if he has a similar season to what he did this season, I see us maybe moving him on next season because as I said, it does seem like a player that's got all the ability in the world. Obviously went to West Ham for decent money when I think he was 17, 18 in fairness to the guy. This is well past my bedtime, trust me. So I'm excited to see of what Haksabanovic can do because it's a player that I really like. I like his style. He does play like I expect a European player to play. I think he would benefit playing more in a central role. But he is always good coming in off the left, just doing that wee chopping. It might benefit from that because Rodgers maybe not be so focused on like the pace or the blistering pace of how he did to play in the press is shutting down and stuff like that. So he might get away with it, but I don't know.
They don't hold back in these comments, do they?
No, they're ruthless, absolute ruthless. But no, I'm excited to see what Haksabanovic will do, but I think he needs to get off to a good start. I don't think he can be having a couple of sub appearances here and there. Otherwise, I don't see a future for him, unfortunately, because he's a guy that I really do like. And like you say, Stephen, he's looking good with that looking slick with that haircut. Mm-hmm. And I think somebody said it in the comments, he's got fucking diamond teeth in that as well. So they better hear something about him because you can't be prancing about like that.
I mean, to be fair, that's a lot of arrogance there, Anthony. But I do agree. And I mean, quick fire here before Anthony yawns again and falls asleep live on camera. David Turnbull, the birthday boy today. I think it was today. It was today, wasn't it? Can you see him staking the claim? Obviously, as well, you look at the midfield that he had previously. It was full of fit people who could run, could get around the pitch. For me, again, David Turnbull doesn't fill me with joy in that front. Obviously, he's very technical, but if you're going to play Haksabanovic in the 10 role, kind of limits again where his position would be in the squad, in my opinion. If someone offers me £5 to £6 million, I'm paying his taxi fare.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, the Celtic board certainly wouldn't say no to that kind of offer as well. But I'm just kind of hoping for a sort of God, you don't want to see me when I'm angry, Danny. But no, I think I'm hoping for a kind of Stuart Armstrong, kind of Ryan Christie type feel with Rodgers and David Turnbull. I think he's got, like you say, all the talent in the world, and he's been a kind of mainstay with Celtic in the early years, when he broke into the team, and then he was good, really important player for Ange in that first half of his first season. Then he obviously picked up the injury, but he's kind of found it hard to break in after that. Brilliant, I remember that McCarthy went full Brendan in that press conference. If I remember correctly.
Can you do Anthony? Can you do the accent? You're usually good at accents.
Surely you could do it.
Well, I've played a couple of games here and there,
Stephen, he does a better Irish accent than you.
Mate, trust me, I tried to do Rodgers the other week and it sounded more like Schwarzenegger than it did Brendan Rodgers.
Maybe need to do that at the Christmas party. You never know, that could be a party piece. But no, as I say, I like you boys are saying, I think he is way down the pecking order, but you just never know. I think with the fact that Brendan's there, he's got a knack for kind of turning, guys that have maybe been a bit out of form back into form. Thanks, Pam. And but you just hopefully he can do a stint. But you just at the moment he's certainly not a first team starter.
And to be fair as well, with Odin Thiago Home coming in and players like that, I think his position in the squad's getting further and further down, Anthony. So same to you, quick fire here. Yes or no? Is he going to be at us at the start of the season?
My heart says no. But no. My heart says yes, but my head says no. I think Turnbull needs to.
My mind's telling me no.
I think for Turnbull, there's no denying the boy's got talent. He has. He's a really good player. Again, it makes it good that he's Scottish, so it's always good to have that core of players in your team where you can. But I think Turnbull, Stephen Kennedy's an accent. I think for the sake of Turnbull's career, he'll obviously have aspirations of the Scottish national team, who are absolutely flying and look well on course to qualify for another major tournament. And Turnbull, I think he makes the squads. Anthony might be able to confirm that. This was me just showing up how much I pay attention to the Scottish national team. I know he doesn't start many games, so if potentially
Anthony slowly disappear,
he might make the squad. So I think, similar to Welsh, I think David Turnbull potentially might need to move for the sake of his career and his international career, especially with another international tournament coming up, which I say Scotland look well on course to be qualified for. I wouldn't have any qualms with him staying around because I think he's a top player. I think a guy like Rodgers could work really well with him. But I think it's David Turnbull's got a big decision to make, I think, this summer.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's like a crossroads for his own personal career, like and development. You know what I mean? And we'll see where that goes. And to be fair as well, I mean, if I tried that, will you hear me try this, right? Because I've been thinking in my head, should I do it here? Are you ready for this? This is going to be a shambles.
It's an Endless Celts exclusive here, folks.
I know. Stephen, Northern Irish. Stephen, try to do a Northern Irish accent.
Ready? I played a few games here and there. So bad.
How are you sounding Austrian?
I don't know. It's too many movies, mate. It's too many movies. But
an Irish guy,
right.
can I do an Irish accent?
Listen, mate. I'm a man. I'm incognito. I'm deep undercover. So yeah, no problem.
So in that sentence there, in that one sentence, Stephen's used the word movies incognito. Yeah, and man, let's not go any further.
But
what goes on in that phone of yours?
Later, you're wanting Big Decanta to send you personalised messages. That's not my problem. But we'll move on to we'll round it off with a wee bit of transfer rumour today. Sounded like Dolph Lundgren. All right, Corvo, relax. But one of the rumours today, Anthony, and you'll know this player probably better than the majority of us, and obviously seen him at Ajax, was Donny van Beek Van de Beek, whatever way you say his name. He's in my opinion, when he joined us, I thought it was a great signing, joining Manchester United, obviously. And under Ten Hag, I thought he would have took his game to a different level. But I think injuries played a part, and he went on loan to the Everton for the final part of the season. And to be fair, I'd be excited if we got Danny in. I think he's a cracking midfield player with Ajax. He would play with Frankie de Jong and players like that of that quality. And if that was a signing that we can make possible, that would be a fantastic bit of business.
It would. I mean, obviously, like you say, kind of, to use Micah Richards says, he burst onto the scene at Ajax. He was part of that team that kind of almost went all the way to the final. But then, he signed for United, and he's signed for Man United at a time of, the worst possible time to sign for them, when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the manager. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer seems a nice guy, but he's not a manager of a club that size, and he's certainly not a coach. The scary thing is, nobody since Alex Ferguson retired has went to Man United as a signing and actually improved, which kind of maybe lets you know about the potential state of things behind the scenes at Old Trafford. But I think that's maybe changing a bit with Eric Ten Hag coming in. He's very much more coach-minded, which is why I agree. I thought he maybe would have kicked on a bit under Ten Hag, but it's not been the case just yet. But he's one of these players that maybe has a point to prove, and he's trying to rebuild his career. Brendan Rodgers might be the perfect fit for him. Like you say, it's at the moment still perhaps maybe more unrealistic than realistic, but if there's a way of doing it, then absolutely bring it on. Same with just what Wally was saying last week about McTominay as well. That it's not beyond the realms of possibility as getting these guys now, and that's the great about the fact we're in the Champions League outright. We don't have to worry about qualifiers or anything like that. But for a lot of guys, working with Brendan Rodgers himself is something that a lot of guys would be interested in doing, which is why it's just so great that he's back.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And like with Donny as well, Franny, you have to look at this. I mean, his pedigree at Ajax, over 120 games basically for them, scored goals, assisted goals, and I think it was like 35 million, Anthony, wasn't it, that United parted ways with? A fair bit of coin, and James Floyd said there he's a player he would take, but it would cost us a pretty penny. And I totally agree with Anthony. If we're trying to progress to the next stage and get players of that ilk in, especially if we're looking to improve the first team instead of beefing out the squad. First of all, it was Scott McTominay, and now we're linked with Donny Van de Beek, and I mean players of that caliber coming into us, that would improve us no end.
Oh, most definitely, and I mean, just to sort of advance on a rumour, McTominay apparently is up for sale, so I don't know how that might play out. But I certainly
go for me page.
Donny Van de Beek, that came from left field. That one,
yeah,
I know he was hampered a lot with injury last season and stuff, and obviously didn't really work out for him at Everton. But I think it was a fairly bad injury. He had I think it was a ligament damage and stuff, so it's not an easy one to recover. So there would be that sort of going over the topic, going, well, he did have a bad knee injury, so how is he going to come back? See, I'm not understanding what Jed's saying, but I due to his injury, I think it would be a risk. But like you say, it's a player with a point to prove. Like that season before he went to Man United, he was absolutely brilliant in the Champions League, scored against Real Madrid and stuff. He was one of their better players. But it's a player I would take in a heartbeat, because I think
brilliant player.
If he can stay fit, obviously that's a big one now. Not to say I know much about his career at Ajax, but if you look at the amount of appearances he had, doesn't suggest he suffered a lot of injuries. How it didn't work out at Man United, I don't know, especially when, like Anthony touched on, they weren't exactly playing well at the time. So how he's not getting a chance there, I don't know. I think we all been lazy thinking it would work under Ten Hag, because Ten Hag was his manager at Ajax. I don't think so. I think it's a fairly logical argument to make, that a guy that played well under a manager at Ajax, got his big move, playing under that manager, is now the manager of that club. I think it's only logic you would think, well, it'll work out. But obviously he got the injury and stuff, and Man United, unfortunately for him, brought in guys like Casemiro, and Fred suddenly turned into a bit of a football player, and obviously you've got Bruno Fernandes and that. So it was obviously hard for him to break into that team. But certainly, I think if there's a chance, if Donny van de Beek comes in, that's the type of players that will help you out in Europe. I think he's not coming in to try and win you the league at Parkhead in Scotland. That's not what you're buying a Donny van de Beek for. You're doing that to try and improve in Europe. To try and improve in Europe. Similar to McTominay's, they're not in to try and win you the league. They're there to take you further in Europe. And similar to this, as much as I don't know much about this, reader, but you're not getting valued at that kind of money if you're not got something about you. So it's the names are exciting. It's whether we get them in the line or not.
Exactly. I think we'll round it off there with a podcast. But I mean, a great day for everybody involved at Celtic. Captain Cal signing a new 5-year contract. Rumours are going mental. People are enjoying pre-season. Fringe players are getting an opportunity. We're linked with Manchester United players, 2 of them, not just one, but 2 of them. Scott McTominay and Donny van de Beek. So we'll see how these kind of go over the next couple of days. I do expect this week there'll be some progress made in the transfer window. I think we'll see maybe 1 or 2, hopefully, coming in. Our rumours start to gather pace, and you maybe get the likes of Anthony Joseph and Stephen McGowan commenting on it. Then you know it's concrete. But have you enjoyed this one?
It's been good, mate. Been very good.
I loved it, mate. Good being back on, and especially when there's great news like your captain signing on for five more years. Absolutely brilliant. Just can't wait now for the action to get back underway now and see us being able to review performances on the pitch.
Yeah, and then Jed Thomas says, Stephen, the way in practice, you're in practice. I'm not practicing anything. But thanks for everybody getting involved. Everyone, Paul McFarlane, Patrick, James Floyd, Pam, Joe P, Monty, Mark Nugent, Plunge McNugget, Corvo, it's Joe Finlay. Excellent to see you all getting involved in the comments and sticking with us yet again. And again, like and subscribe, share us far and wide, get us involved with the outer Celtic family as well, and friends and that who support Celtic. We're trying to grow. So I mean, it's a good platform, and everyone who stayed with us as well. But Joe Finlay, just to kind of confirm, Odin Wingy is not outside Parkhead. He is not outside Parkhead in this car. Do you remember that transfer story? That was mental. He was in the car park and all.
Hadn't been given permission to be there and that. Madness.
Mental. But on that note, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.